Hi, everyone. So nice to have you with us. I have an amazing guest with me today who is actually a very good friend and in my business mastermind. He is quite interesting and full of profound information. Welcome, Vince Kramer. How are you, Vince?
I'm wonderful, Rihanna, and thanks for having me with you today. It's pretty exciting that we have an opportunity to share with our individual clients this information back and forth on what we have to give the world. And it's
Yeah.
exciting to be here with you today.
Thank you. I mean, as I've been getting to know you, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to have Vince on and speak about this because in so many ways our work is similar, but yet it's different. So I really thought it would be a great benefit to my audience to have you on my podcast. So thanks again. Let me read a little bit about Vince. He's got a ton of credentials here. Vince is an airline pilot and a military veteran, and he brings a unique experience to the world of self-improvement and purpose-driven growth. His past experience is in a typically macho field, brings a much more integrated perspective to the softer field of personal growth not often seen. As a speaker, trainer, best-selling author of Mastering the Art of Success with the notorious Jack Canfield, and coach, Vince's distinct combination of experience, education, and research helps him develop powerful talks, workshops, and online training in finding happiness and success by living life by their design. Vince passionately believes everyone is unique and the creator of their own life. It is his desire to inspire and empower men, women, organizations, and families to find success and happiness by designing and creating a life fueled by their desires. Vince has over 30 years of experience training and coaching people in personal growth, leadership, and transformation. He founded Imagine Miracles to educate and train people of all walks of life on how to discover, design, and create their miracle life. Vince wrote and produced the Your Miracle Life series of online training programs and associated workshops based on the CREATE model and your unique formula. He has been seen on Fox, CBS, NBC, ABC, and now you see him today. Welcome, Vince. How are you?
And one of the most favorite places I could be is right here with you. So I'm wonderful.
You're so sweet.
Rihanna, it's great that you got to share a little bit about me, but because we're going to share this with both audiences, do you mind if I tell my audience a little bit about you?
Sure. Thank you.
You bet. That'd be awesome. So Rihanna is a certified global life dating and relationship coach, a #1 best-selling author. We share that distinction, which is pretty amazing in a small group of people throughout the world. A life and dating coach for the new docu-series Radical Dating, Finding Lasting Love Over 40. That's one of the most important things out there, is to find love, both inside and out. So what a wonderful thing you're sharing with everyone, Rihanna. She's a host of her former TV show, Lessons in Love and Life. She's an educational speaker, licensed mental health counselor, and certified trauma and addictions professional for over 18 years in Delray Beach, Florida. She offers online virtual coaching courses for singles and couples at her own training academy. It's called the Life and Love Training Academy. You can go to lifeandlovetrainingacademy.com to find out some more information about the training that Rihanna offers. Her free app, My Relational Coach, offers many videos and articles. Her 5-star rated books, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve, and Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success, addresses life transitions, personal transformation, and relationship with yourself and others. Rihanna's Facebook fan page is Coach Riana Milne, and her website is rianamilne.com. That's MILNE.com.
Thank you, Vince. Thanks so much. So let's get right to it. I want to know more about what you do. I want my clients to understand how to get their miracle life. So can you start out by telling them, what does it mean to master your mind?
Well, you know what I learned very early in life was I wanted to share with people in a way that they could love themselves and love others, just like you're doing right now. And it took me forever to get to that point. Unlike you, as you read earlier, I was an airline pilot. I was a director level position at a Fortune 100 company. I did everything that my grandfather really, I'm going to give him most of the credit, told me what to do and how to do it to be a real man.
Hmm.
And what I realized after a few wake-up calls, one of them which was 9/11, and the second was a divorce. And as I read to both groups, you're very familiar with relationships and how things go. And what I started to do is to try to find myself.
Hmm.
And what I found was that I was giving myself away, and I was living by a set of rules that were my grandfather's. They were all kind of programmed into me, as we all do with our belief systems and with the personality that we form.
Hmm.
Um, not a lot of trauma in my life with like the stuff that you work with, but I did a really good job of learning how to be a man from let's say the 1940s, the 1950s way of being a man.
The expected roles that you had to play.
Exactly. And unfortunately, there's no one out there that tells us that we have to keep the belief systems that we have. And no one out there that tells us that the personality we form, or the ego, as it's also called, is something that if you raise your vibration, and I'm really into quantum physics and understanding energy and
Yeah.
raising your vibration,
Yeah.
you can actually turn that ego, that personality, into something that is so powerful to help you live your passion and purpose. And that's what I'm all about.
And why do we need to do that?
Well, if not, we're not living life by our rules. We're not experiencing and sharing the passion and purpose that we were meant to experience. It's our birthright to live on purpose. And the
Mhm.
world needs us to live our purpose and to live it passionately so they can live their purpose. It's kind of like a puzzle. Each of us goes into that puzzle one piece at a time. And if I don't take my spot and form the next spot for the other people that are there to share their purpose, then there's a possibility that they won't. So we have to aid each other in opening the door to live a miracle life, the life that we're meant to live, the life that we desire.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I do a lot of purpose work as well. And you're right. So many people are stuck in these roles that were expected of mom and dad while we were growing up. Part of it may be really hammered into, which is part of childhood trauma that I'm going to get into a little bit. But that makes total sense. So, how does the ego affect our lives, either in a positive or a negative way?
Well, the ego's there, as you know, to protect us, and
Hmm.
it does a really good job. Unfortunately, the ego was formed, and our belief systems formed way back before, around 2 years old. As a matter of fact, most of it was formed by the time we were 7, and if we don't look at how we're living life automatically on autopilot, as I like to say, kind of bring in the pilot world a little bit here, if we don't realize that we're living and reacting from our inner autopilot, the next thing we know, we're making decisions based on our life to include relationships, occupation, just day-to-day life based on that what that 2-year-old perceived around them. So the ego, as I said, is something to be worked with and not against. We hear so many times you got to get out of the ego. You got to get rid of the ego. Ego means edge God out. And really what it basically comes down to is something that we have to work with. And the ego's willing to do that. We just have to prove to it that we're safe as we're moving forward in the life that we want to live.
I like how you put it that way. As I work with my clients as well, I help them to make their unconscious decisions and impulses very conscious.
Mhm.
And that unconscious is the protective mechanism. The adults learn as early children things, to handle what could be traumatic or toxic while they're young. So the ego steps up and protects. But then it becomes very unconscious. So they're wondering, why are my relationships falling apart as they get older? When unconsciously they're still doing those things to protect them, but it's actually just sabotaging the relationships they really crave. So it's so fascinating how our work is intertwined. What else do we need to know about that on your end? What else
Well,
do you?
one of the most important things, as you said, it was that child that picked that up, and it's based on child perceptions. So
Mhm,
that 2-year-old is the center of the universe, and everything that happens around it happens because of me. And
mhm.
actually, that's not the case. But we take on everybody else's stuff, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean. And unfortunately, um, it's time to release everyone from that, as you're doing and as I'm doing, but they have to know they can be released, and it's podcasts like this and us being together and able to share with both groups that can happen, and the door can open to a life that's absolutely fantastic for everyone.
absolutely. Tell me a little bit more about egos and belief systems from your education, from what you've studied.
Okay, well, the belief system is just thoughts that we have over and over again. That's what a belief is. And if you look at the aspects of a belief system from the place of energy, whatever we put out into the world is what we attract back in. So if I'm a young child and I was chastised by my father one time for crying, which big boys don't cry, right? That's a
Yeah.
good belief system to carry around.
Mhm.
If I was chastised for crying, there's something wrong with me because I was crying, because I made my dad upset. I just want him to love me. I just want him to take care of me. I just want him to feed me. But if
Mhm.
I angered him, there must be something wrong with me there. But in that belief, then, or in that initial thought, I put that energy out into the universe. And unfortunately, I keep attracting opportunities for me to see that that belief is true and is real.
That
And that's,
feeling of not being good enough.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know the big ones. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not lovable. And we all hold those. We hold them as a collective, as well as we hold them as individuals. So
Mhm.
it's understanding that the energy that goes out helped you create that. But like I said earlier, beliefs aren't real. We
And
just
how do you go about helping your clients? Who would be like your ideal client?
Well, my ideal client is that person that finally had some kind of wake up call, like I talked about. 9/11 was a wake up for me, and
Mhm.
finally I did wake up when the divorce happened, and I really had to go out and look at it. So once you've had that wake up call, you're asking, life's got to have more meaning than it is.
Mm.
Why am I living by everybody else's rules, and I'm not getting what I thought I was going to get? That's what happened to me through my lifetime. Is I I kept doing everything I was supposed to do,
Yeah.
and
And it just
unfortunately I
felt
didn't.
empty.
Yeah, and unfortunately I didn't have the feelings. I
Mhm.
didn't find the happiness that I thought I was going to. And what I realized was that it's me that has to make that decision. So my work is really based on, it starts out with a program called Discovering Your Miracle Life. And that program just walks through the big 5 questions of life. Where am I right now? You have to have a place where you're starting. Who
Mhm.
am I? What do I have to offer? Why am I here? And how do I live life on purpose now that I know all this information? And it's all based on finding the answers from inside. Vince
Wonderful.
and Riana doesn't have that. We don't have the answers for these people. They have their own answers, and it takes. Like to take my clients through several processes. One, to really get to know the ego, so
Mhm.
the ego is no longer trying to hold you back from finding who you really are. And then we really touch base with trusted source, finding those
Good.
answers within, listening
Yeah.
to your heart and getting the information from the place that really has the knowledge that you want.
I love that. Thank you, Vince. How can people get in touch with you or get to know you more and start working with you? What do they do?
Well, because you gave me this wonderful opportunity, I want to give everyone in both groups an opportunity to get a little bit of information in a way that they can walk themselves through those 5 questions. So I'm offering my Miracle Life Blueprint to both groups, and all you have to do is go to imaginemiracles.com/Riana. You bet. They'll be able to download their Miracle Life Blueprint, and it'll walk them through the steps that I use with my clients. And if you
Great.
want a little help, just come and see me. It's very easy to get a hold of me, and you'll find that information on the blueprint.
Good. Great. Thank you, Vince, for sharing all that.
You're
Wonderful.
welcome. Why don't we kind of slide into the world of bringing you in and kind of tying things together with what I just talked about. Tell us
Sure.
a little bit more about your work as the life, love, and relationship coach.
Sure. Well, I became a psychotherapist doing the traditional therapy model from 2000 to 2018. And I love being a therapist. I started in New Jersey, Atlantic City area, and then moved to Delray in 2014. But in the first few years, I had a very different style. I was kind of a rebel in college. I didn't like the typical therapist that just sits there and only says, "So how do you feel about that?" Because we were supposed to interview 5 therapists. I didn't like any of them. I'm like, look, if I'm going to spend time going to a therapist, I want real answers. So I always became like a coach. And I finally got certified at Relationship Coaching Institute as a life and relationship coach for both singles and couples in 2009 and 10. So I love the coaching model, and it's very a VIP experience. My VIP clients, they can email me, they can text me. We work by Skype. I coach around the world. My furthest client is in Lebanon. So my clients get the comfort of their own home, and they can work with me and reach me that way. Or there's the alternative of home education, where you can go on lifeandlovetrainingacademy.com, but I'm still your coach, coaching you as you're getting the education off that platform, the learning platform. So there's 2 ways to work with me. But, you know, I also went through a couple of marriages, and they were 2 of very similar personality types. And I'm like, what's going on? I didn't learn any of what's happening here in my triple master's in psychology. So it started me on a rampage to get in research to find out why they did what they did, because it didn't make sense. I describe it as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll, as you know from the show, is everybody loves him, socially outgoing, confident, charming, loving, and then a real bear behind doors, a hidden personality type who gets critical and angry and short fuse of temper. And it's like, what is this? And, you know, it could have been borderline, it could have been bipolar, but I wanted to know, how do people develop this? And how are they so skilled at having these 2 personality types? So I dug deeper, and I discovered that the people that I was attracted to had childhood trauma. And I wanted to know what more the childhood traumas were. Way back many years ago, a term came out called ACOA, Adult Child of an Alcoholic or Other Traumas. And they really didn't do a lot of research on what were the other traumas. So, you know, I'll share with the audience what the 10 traumas are in a minute, but it was so powerful that I learned this, that I created my program around that. The latest research that came out in 2014 from the Kaiser Permanente group showed that 90%, actually 89.8% of people suffer at least one, they call it an ACE, A-C-E, adverse childhood event. They named 20 traumas. And just for my podcast, I can't go into all 20, so I do list, you know, at least 10 of them for educational value for our listeners. So it was so fascinating, because once I saw the model very clearly, it really applied to all my people in therapy, my singles who are struggling looking for love, and my couples who initially their relationship was so idyllic and romantic and a lot of attention and affection. They became very toxic, and it was 4 to 9 months in, which the study showed this is when that normally happens. So what I was seeing on a client basis was matching all the research, and I found it fascinating. So I dug really deep. I wrote a couple of books, and then I created my 200-page workbook, which is the cornerstone of my coaching programs.
So there's a it's very interesting. You say 4 to 9 months in. That's kind of when we start shedding those masks that
Yes.
we've learned to form to attract people into our lives. And then we get to a point where now we get to see someone without the mask. And on the same note, we get to see a little bit of us as they mirror back to us some things that are going on inside of us too. So
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing on the work that you're doing. How does childhood trauma hold someone back from the life and love relationship that they dream of?
Well, this is all very unconscious, as you talked about. Us little children learn coping mechanisms that when we're under pressure or we're afraid of our mom and dad, we obviously can't just get up and walk out. We have to live with these people. So we maneuver tools to help us cope and survive. So that is what happens. And then, like a big arc or a rainbow that comes out later in your love relationships. So if you don't get a handle on what it is and how to change them, in other words, making the unconscious very conscious and choosing what to say, how to act, what to write before impulsively doing it. The impulse is the ego or the unconscious, just blurting it out there. You're going to keep ruining your relationships. You're going to keep ruining your life, whether it's in work or in love. That's why the program that I do, we first examine the life part of it. And I wear the 3 hats, the psychotherapist, the clinical trauma professional, to dissect the past, figure out the puzzle of what's going on within you. And every client that comes to me is a different puzzle. And then how we best can get you beyond that. And the rainbow, I say, you're at the beginning of the learning curve. And as you learn, you go up the hill, then you'll slip, and you go up the hill, you'll slip again, because we are working with many years of unconscious. But by the time they're finished, there is actually a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They're totally lit up with conscious behavior, thought systems. And if an emotional trigger, that means a weak moment, or a childhood wound comes up, right away their mindset is working to correct it. So they learn to make that unconscious conscious. And it's fascinating because you see anxiety going down, depression going down, stress hormones going down, where people might have tried to lose weight. They're so hyped up in stress that they can't calm themselves. So it very much is a mindset approach, but there's also exact skills they need to learn by the time we get to the dating part or the communication skills for the couples, what they exactly have to do to get beyond the emotional triggers and have successful relationships.
Very similar to the work that I do. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to find it on the inside so you can start sharing it on the outside.
Exactly.
Find that love for yourself. I like to say I was unconsciously living conscious, or consciously living unconscious, as I was following Grandpa's rules and living the life that a man is supposed to live. I'm really familiar with trauma. First of all, I know that every one of us has some trauma in our life, and that's the strongest part of our egos, those loud voices that are in our head. But I'm really extra kind of engaged in the trauma world because my stepson Riley unfortunately has an alcohol addiction, and for the last 5 years he's been in and out of rehabs, and the trauma just keeps surfacing in different levels and different levels. Could you share with us a little bit about the 10 traumas that are experienced during childhood and how that affects us?
I will. Like I said, there's at least 20, but I named the most common 10. But just hitting on Riley for a moment, I am a certified drug and alcohol addiction counselor, and I taught at the college level in New Jersey, future counselors for that certification. And I'd say in my class, how many people are teaching the ACOA trauma work? And about 2 out of 60 even knew what I was talking about. So this is why there's so much relapse going on with addictions, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, whatever it is. The relapse keeps coming because we're not addressing the underlying issues in the rehab centers. So I just wanted to hit on that because I think it's so critical for them to have a coaching component based in trauma, and they're just not giving it to the kids. So anyway, let's go into the traumas. And I advise people at this point, get a pen and paper to write them down, because You'll be surprised at how many you have when you don't think you have any right now until I mention them. And so here we go. Here's the 10 traumas. When you're a child, of course, you're very young, you're very innocent. All you know is what your parents are showing you, and this becomes your quote unquote, your normal. When you were growing up as a little person, did you see any addiction from mom or dad? So that could be, again, drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, cheating, hoarding, spending, eating, gambling, gaming, TV watching, and there's a whole lot more that I could go on, but there's some of the common ones. Next, were you a recipient of, or did you witness verbal abuse? So that could be yelling, screaming of your parents or them at you, even being verbally put down, told you're not good enough, called names, or just gotten the silent treatment. Those are all forms of verbal abuse. Next, emotional abuse or neglect. Number 4 is physical abuse, whether you were beaten, or sexual abuse and molestation. And that is a very heavy trauma, no matter which of the 3 it is. And, trauma stays in the brain and the body as your brain develops up to about age 25. So they're saying even with that one, if that occurs up to age 25, it's a big rated trauma. Next is abandonment. And there's 2 types. Fault and no fault abandonment. So a no fault abandonment, 3 examples would be like if dad has to go off to war, if he has to travel a lot for his job, and that was my dad. My dad was in the Air Force, and we didn't know, but he was FBI, CIA. So I always was asking, when's daddy coming home? And it's kind of weird when your own mom says, I don't know. It's like, what do you mean? Where is he? And she couldn't answer the basic questions a kid asks. So that leaves a kid anxious. So that's abandonment, but no fault because he was supporting the family. And another one would be if a parent passes away early. A fault abandonment would be if there's a divorce and that one parent that leaves the house doesn't keep in touch with you, breaks their promises about seeing you, even lying constantly is a form of abandonment because the trust is broken. Next one is if you had to go live with another family, if you were adopted, part of foster care, or had to live with relatives or family friends because your parents couldn't take care of you. Number 7 is a common one. It is personal trauma. This is if you've ever been bullied, put down, not feeling good enough, which you mentioned a lot happens for many of us, Vince. If you were an overweight child or really skinny and gawky, you weren't chosen for the sport teams, you weren't in a popular crowd. There's so many ways to feel not good enough or that you don't fit in. This also could be if you had a medical condition and you had to deal with that as you were growing up. The next one is sibling trauma. Very often, this is when your sibling is perceived as the golden child, whether your parents treated them differently or you perceive they were treated differently. They could have been a more attractive, more intelligent, more athletic, just more something where you didn't feel like you measured up. This also could be if your sibling had a medical condition and they got all the attention and you were just to the side, or your sibling bullied you. So those are 3 around that one. Next one is community trauma or family trauma. Typical family trauma could be growing up in poverty, if a parent was incarcerated, or losing your home by flood, fire, even the mortgage crises. That was a big one many years ago. So there I have entered from the second half of the traumas. I put community trauma in with that one because even since, I think it was since July with the floods in Houston and then Florida and then Puerto Rico and the fires in California, look how many people have been displaced from their homes. This has become rampant, as well as the mass shootings. And as you know, Vince, I went and talked in Las Vegas, soon after that trauma happened there, and people were still acting in a very numb post-traumatic stress state. Mm-hmm. And it does affect you for a very long period of time. Community and family trauma are huge right now, unfortunately. And the last one is if you grew up with a parent that had a mental health issue. Some of the 2 most common and severe is borderline personality. I call that the Jekyll Hyde personality. You just don't know what you're going to get. When they're nice, they're nice. When they're bad, they're horrid. Fast trigger anger, very moody. And then the other one is bipolar, which is manic, very ups, and depressive, very lows. And sometimes depression comes out as anger, exhaustion, no time to deal with the kids, those kinds of things, which often leads to the self-medication. We're back into the spiral of addiction again. So those are 10 of the 20. So when you think about it, and I saw people like really dissect your childhood and see how many of these you might have, because it really makes a big difference in who you attract to love and how they come out in your love relationship.
Exactly. And you know, one of the things that I tell my clients is our parents do the best that they could do. And a
Mhm.
lot of it is the perceptions that we pick up from their traumas that
Yes.
we take on. We kind of attract it into us and we hold on to it. Many of us are able to take those and just shove them aside. I think Carl Jung calls it the shadow, that we just kind of stick down there deeper, the things that we have judgments on us, that we believe is us, and the things that we have judgment on other people. So when you get it stuck down there, then, but you can only hold it down so long, and then that beach ball just pops up out of the water. So when that happens, you know, what really happens when a relationship seems so perfect, and why do two things turn toxic once you're in an exclusive relationship or when you're married?
Okay. Well, what's going on? Research shows that someone from a toxic background attracts someone of a toxic background. Why? They get each other. They both crave love. They both love attention. So initially, these relationships are super passionate, romantic, lots of gifts, texting, phone calls. Everyone thinks it's just perfect. But like you said, over time, that 4 to 9 months time period, or when it gets more serious. So I talk about being exclusive, getting engaged, living together, or getting married. Very often, these start the triggers of the emotional change. So some ways this come out, let's say, with the jealousy. Jealousy comes from definitely trauma number 7, not feeling good enough. You don't feel you measure up, your little childhood mind. So if you're out with your attractive partner and somebody's looking at them, you might think, if you've come from that feeling, oh, she's coming on to him, you know, why they keep looking at him? Is he looking back? Oh, he wants her more than he wants me. So jealousy definitely comes from both abandonment and then that trigger 7, not feeling good enough. Another one might be if you've seen your partner, why they lie all the time. Like you would even say, why do you lie all the time? There's no reason to even lie. Well, that comes up because that was a coping mechanism, a real survival tool for a child. Let's say the little boy comes home with an F on his test, changes it into an A. The father believes him. He doesn't get beat because he failed the test. And he's there, wow, lying works. So he just becomes an expert liar and becomes just part of his personality. And it's so unconsciously done that they don't even think, well, this isn't hurting my partner. I can lie and become very brilliant at it.
Mm-hmm.
And this becomes part of manipulation. Another thing would be charm. Let's say that little boy didn't feel good enough. His family was very toxic. They were yelling and screaming. And you mentioned family, by the way. If you come from a traumatic childhood, studies show that definitely mom or dad came from the childhood trauma as well. It goes through the generations. So if he didn't feel loved at home, this is the little boy that goes in and schmoozes his teacher, the female teacher, and, you know, buddies up to her and flirts with her in a little childhood-like way, becomes a teacher's pet. And he found, wow, I can get love by being charming. Mm-hmm. Or the class clown, same thing. They get love and attention by making people laugh. So a lot of women that say, wow, I want a guy with a huge sense of humor, that could actually be a red flag that they're using humor to cover up, you know, insecurities. So there's all these phenomenally interesting patterns that emerge. So that's why I have to do the one-on-one work to really get to deep into what's going on and showing up for them. And then, you know, we just keep triggering it back to, okay, this came up for you. Great. Where do you think this stems back to? And then they're totally getting it and they're knowing how to change their mindset about it. And they just learn to do it very quickly. And over time, like 30, 60, 90 days, it just becomes less and less. And then it barely shows up at all. And if it does, they know how to work the mindset and their conscious behaviors, make sure it just kind of goes away.
So you're changing those inner acceptance, and in that inner acceptance, now you start radiating out the energy that you want to attract in, so we don't keep bringing those same relationships into our lives over and over again.
Totally.
Awesome. I know you've got some amazing information to share with people. How do they get a hold of you?
Yes, on my website, it's rianamilne.com, RIANAMILNE.com. On the first page, there is a pop-up. It just says, apply for a free life and love transformation strategy session. And from the week after this tape airs, I have 5 openings. I would love to meet with you if this topic resonates with you. This is a $500 value. All you have to do is tell me your story. And if you wrote down some of those triggers, the more information you can give me, the more that I can help you. So it's right on the pop-up there. And I do have an ebook that there will be a link on the homepage for that ebook about defining the traumas. Again, if you forgot about them or you weren't able to write them down, they will be identified in that free ebook. Click on that and it'll be sent right to you.
I'll tell you what, Riana, you are so generous that you're motivating me. So anybody that downloads the blueprint, the Miracle Life Blueprint, I will email you right after you download that blueprint an opportunity to have a free session with me too.
Great.
Just like you, I'm pretty busy. I got to fly the friendly skies here real soon. So I'll also offer 5 sessions just like you are for both groups. So anybody who's interested, wonderful, you'll have that opportunity too.
Good, Vince. Good. You'll give me the links and I'll put it at the end of this tape. So just stay to the end so you can write all those links down. Well, Vince, I thank you. Vince Kramer, an amazing man, and to have you out there sharing your message with the world. I'm so glad I had this chance to finally talk to you because our work is so similar and it's so important. So thank you for joining me today.
And thank you for helping people be the miracle in their lives.
Thank you, Vince. Bye-bye, everyone. See you soon.